Hello, I'm Diane Kaufman. I work with the University of Maryland, Baltimore School of Pharmacy, Department of Pharmaceutical Health Services Research. Today, we will review the necessary components that will enable you to become a subcontractor on grants and contracts awarded to the University of Maryland, Baltimore, such as the Patients Project. The process starts when a principal investigator responds to a funding opportunities in their area of expertise. Although they can be referred to in a number of manners, we will call them RFAs for this exercise. What is an RFA? It's a type of solicitation notice in which an organization announces that grant funding is available and allows researchers and other organizations to present proposals or bids on how the funding could be used. Sponsors post notices when they are interested in funding research in specific areas. They solicit proposals. The solicitation dictates the research requirements and the budgetary limitations. PIs identify potential participants to partner in the project. This is where you come in. The investigator or a member of the research team will contact potential partners to see if they're interested in participating. If you are, the investigator will notify our research coordinator, who will contact you. What will UMB supply to you? We will supply a copy of the RFA, a list of needs, the title of the proposed grant, project date parameters, that means the start and the end dates, deadlines for completion of the packet, and templates if applicable. The information you will need to give us includes a DUNS number, which is required for government grants and contracts. You can find information on DUNS on the patient's website. We'll need a letter of support, institutional authorization, subcontractor scope of work, budget narrative, project performance site information, and Biosketches for key personnel. These items will be described as we continue. What is a letter of support? A letter of support is a letter from a potential partner, usually the subcontractor PI, or other key stakeholders that details a compelling and persuasive reason why a grant should be funded. It describes how the partner will support the project, conveys enthusiasm for the project, and lends credibility to the work. Letters of support can come from research colleagues, politicians, and community leaders, as well as from partner members. For subcontractors, the letter usually comes from the subcontracting principal investigator. It expresses support for the project and a willingness to participate should an award be made. It should describe the attributes of the PI as they apply to the proposed project and elements of how you would participate in the project. What is institutional authorization, and how does it differ from a letter of support? Both funding agencies, that's the sponsor, and UMB want to assure that you are allowed to participate in the proposed project and that you're aware of the guidelines and regulations required for participation. Institutional authorization is authorization by an institution that they will be willing to enter into an agreement with the University of Maryland, Baltimore should an award be made, that their institution has appropriate personnel on board to ensure the grant compliance with guidelines and policies. can be in the form of a letter or a sponsor-generated form, and it has to be signed by an authorized official of the subcontracting institution. Note that contracts are not negotiated unless an award is made, and that contract language can be written to assist small institutions who do not have programmatic personnel on hand. The scope of work describes a set of activities to be performed by the subcontractor for the proposed project. It documents the project requirements, milestones, deliverables, end products, and the documents and reports expected from the subcontractor. A scope of work can be as short as a couple of sentences or a number of pages, depending on the role that you play in the project. The scope of work requires a discussion and agreement between the primary PI and your participating members. The information we need for project performance site location provides sponsors with information regarding where the project activities will be performed. It includes information about the research environment, the address, the legal name, the congressional district, and the DUNS. We will give you a form that asks for this information. We need this information because sponsors want to know where the projects will be performed and about the participating institutions. Our research coordinator will send you a template to complete. We are required to enter this information into our system, and this information will help us do that. In addition, we may need names, titles, and contact information for the CEO and administrative contacts for your institution. The items listed provide information to sponsors for each site that participates in the project. The budget is an itemized estimate of expenses anticipated for the project period. It identifies all project expenses and breaks them into project periods. It lists who will participate, their role on the project, and the level of effort, as well as any operating expenses that you propose to be incurred. The components of the budget include personnel costs, which include salaries and fringes for participants, travel expenses, supply expenses, other direct costs such as photocopying, indirect costs that all total to the grand total direct and indirect costs. There are a number of ways that sponsors can require that budgets be formatted. For example, rate-based, task-based, fixed price with milestones, all require itemized details. Keep in mind that your budget needs to fit into the primary budget and may need to be modified before submission. Personnel costs include both salaries and fringe costs. Salaries are itemized for all participants and are calculated based on proposed effort. For subcontractors, the personnel cost can be for as few as one individual, the subcontracting principal investigator. Salaries for a project budget are calculated based on the intended percent of effort for each personnel. The amount is calculated based on an annual base salary times the effort. Note that federal and some other agencies require effort to be reported in calendar month equivalents. In this example, we use a base of $100,000 per annum with an effort at 10%. which equates to 1.2 calendar months. Note that to find the calendar months, you can multiply 12 by the percentage of effort. For your convenience, we have included a conversion table Fringe benefits should be applied based on the percentage of salary effort requested in your proposed budget. Fringe benefits are calculated using the organizational fringe rate and provides support for items such as health care, FICA, retirement. Considering our salary example and using a fringe rate of 30%, we would require the following calculation. 10,000 times 30% equals $3,000. Operating costs include expenses other than personnel and F&A costs. Note that for subcontractors, operating expenses are generally minimal and travel is rare unless the scope of work supports it. Travel would be written into the primary budget for participants needed at conferences or team meetings. Note also that the government may, and many agencies, are restrictive in their determination of what they consider allowable expenses. You can find much information on this on NIH.gov's grant page. Indirect costs, or facilities and administration fees, are based on total or modified total direct costs. Many institutions already have a federally negotiated rate, a copy of which may be needed to be supplied to our research coordinator to affix to the proposal. Indirect costs is applied based on the sponsor's guidelines and/or by an organization's negotiated and federally approved rate. If an organization does not have a federally approved IDC rate, then most sponsors will only allow 10%. Determining indirect cost is likely to require a modified direct cost base. Oftentimes, IDC is not applied to all budget items. This is a sample of Federal 398 budget page. Note that the base salary, effort, and fringe are itemized at the top, and operating expenses are in the middle. F&A is applied to the total direct cost at the bottom to yield a grand total. The budget narrative is sometimes referred to as the budget justification. The narrative serves two purposes. It explains how the costs were estimated. It justifies the need for the cost. The budget justification goes into great detail and explains how the costs are calculated and why they are needed for the proposed project. Personnel are itemized and include names, roles, effort, brief descriptions of an individual's expertise, and what they will do for the specific proposed project. In the sample, you will see travel based on estimated miles. The justification uses that information and goes further to explain why it is needed. Biographical sketches are required for all key personnel only. Key personnel are considered essential to the goals and aims of the project and would need agency approval if they need to be replaced. Staff, students, and postdoc fellows should never be listed as key personnel as they are transient positions. Note that there are several formats for biographical sketches and generally may not exceed 4 pages. They consist of a personal statement, which briefly describes why your experience and qualifications make you particularly well suited for a role on the project. Section B is where you list in chronological order previous positions, concluding with the present position. List any honors, include present membership on any federal government public advisory committee. Section C is for selected peer-reviewed publications. NIH encourages applicants to limit the list of selected peer-reviewed publications or manuscripts in press to no more than 15. Those chosen should be relevant to the proposed project and do not include manuscripts that have been submitted or are in preparation. Section D is for research support. List selected ongoing and completed research projects for the past 3 years, federally and non-federally supported. Begin with the projects that are most relevant to the research proposed in the application. Briefly indicate the overall goals of the project and the responsibilities of the key person identified on the biographical sketch. Do not include the number of person months or direct costs. In summary, there's a few key points. The PHSR Business Office will provide a deadline for the completion of the subaward packet, along with all of the things that you need to give us in that packet. They'll give you an up-to-date Biosketch must be included for all key personnel. If documents are incomplete or have errors, they will be returned to be updated and corrected. All salary information is confidential and will be treated as such. A complete list of contact information for all involved should be made available to UMB as soon as possible. All questions can be directed to the person requesting the information of you or to Michelle Suit at msuit@rx.umaryland.edu. She also welcomes your call if you have questions. This concludes today's session. We welcome feedback, which may be sent to dkaufman@rx.umaryland.edu. We look forward to working with you.